I've worked with many founders over my entire career. I've worked for them and with them and advised them. Almost all of them will have a story where it got to a point in time where they had no idea how they were going to pay their employees. There's one Hitwise founders, Adrian Giles and Andrew Barlow, shared frequently. So they went to the nearby park near our offices and they were like, how are we going to pay for this? Off the credit card, they're all maxed out, and they were basically both in tears in the park. And then a phone call came through. It was a new customer looking to sign up, and it was just enough to get through. But it's like every founder I've spoken to, almost without a fault, has had that story. So again, it's that continuum. It's like you want to be safe. They would have found a way, and they did. And then that's some of the fortitude that founders need.
So thanks for coming on the pod, Daniel.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to a chat.
Yeah, it's called Ways to Wealth, but we think more broadly than that. So we'll talk a lot about kind of you and how your journey is, kind of the arc of your journey, and maybe throw in some little wealth-related questions as well, just because it's a bit of fun. So, could you kind of give us a TLDR on how you came to be here and what you're currently working on?
Yeah. That is a very long story.
Okay, we'll keep it too long, didn't read.
Yeah.
So
the headline maybe is, at one point coming out of school, I thought I was going to get into film and television.
Okay.
But I was always naturally good working with computers.
Right.
And so I started an arts degree and started, getting into things like doing a minor of computer science and things like that. And that really set the trajectory of my career. So I've worked in companies like Hitwise, who they focused in consumer behavior intelligence, and worked in various roles at that business. Fast forward through, Hitwise got acquired by Experian, which people in the fin services area are probably familiar with that business. And that took me to Malaysia, where I spent a decade of my life, first in a sort of director of engineering role, and then moved through a few different companies whilst there in Malaysia. And one of those companies was Seek. Seek were looking for a new CTO. They had acquired JobsDB and Job Street. And so initially I said, no, not interested. But they were like, you seem to have what we're looking for. Can you at least come and have a chat with us? And I did. And then I started to get really interested in the purpose of Seek. There's a chance to help millions of candidates. I'd been in that position before, applying for jobs.
Totally.
So, And more recently, I've moved to Auckland, New Zealand, where my wife grew up. So awesome. It's a new adventure for me.
And how long have you been here?
4 years. Yeah. Okay. But the pandemic had already started. So it was a very odd start to, the opportunities to network and meet people. And, when you're locked down and things like that were fewer. So it was quite an odd start.
Yeah, that would be. But I guess it is what it is. A lot of people actually did that, right?
Yep.
It was a catalyst for change, I think, for many people, wasn't it? In terms of geographical locations, people that accidentally got stuck here and then ended up building. I know probably 5 people or 5 families, I could say, that weren't meant to be here in a sense, at least long term, and have built a life here. Basically because of that experience, because that happened to happen, and then that changed the kind of trajectory of where they were going, I guess. Or
there's an important lesson there that we could probably put a pin in and maybe come back to, but there's something about operating on where you are and then looking at what your options are from there. But for us, we came to New Zealand quite intentionally. So pre-pandemic, we'd made the plan. At that time, my son was 2 years old, and we wanted him to grow up closer to the family. And so we started to, and this is where it maybe connects to wealth, we started to think, well, how do we make that happen? Here we are happily working over in Malaysia. So we knew, our longer term plan is we want to move to New Zealand. We've start making the adjustments and work out what the steps are to getting there.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. We were talking about that in the previous episode about design, you know, living kind of and designing how you want to live and what you want to do, and doing your best to enjoy the everyday and what you're doing to, you know, that provides you a lot of wealth, you know, because obviously time is finite. We only get so many moments, and you may as well spend those moments doing what you want to do.
That's right.
As if you can. Then there's, you know, there's obviously there are moments that there are things in life that we do that we don't really want to do. We know that they're good for us, or that they're going to drive us to where we want to go. But yeah, design of how you want to raise your kids is such an important part, and you're going to have such an impact on them.
Yeah.
Right. And their arc of their journey and their wealth, or their future wealth, which is obviously not just the money side, but also how they've been, you know, the social aspect, the relational aspect of who they can have that deep connection with, that they can lean on, right?
That's right.
You can have $2 million and not know anyone and not have any deep connections, and you can have $20, but you have 10 very deep connections where you can say, I need, you know, I really need this. Would you be able to help?
There's a great strategy tool from Roger Martin. He's got the phrase, what would have to be true? And so once we knew we wanted our son to grow up with some of his cousins and his extended family, then you could work backwards from there and say, well, what would have to be true for us to make that possible?
That's cool.
And so some people, they start with a long-term goal, but they sort of live thinking about the long-term goal, and that becomes very hard to work out, well, from where I am to where I want to get to, that feels so far away, and those incremental steps on how to get there. But you realize that that's more of an orienting function. It's like helping you. I know I'm pointing in that direction, but I'm where I am right now. So I need to, like, what is the next most adjacent step that will take me towards it?
I think about, it might be 7 years ago now, I developed this thing that I call 12-12-12. And it could be 12-12-12-12. Where basically I go, where do I want to be in? And the extreme is 12 years, and then 12 months, and then 12 weeks and 12 days. But we, with our clients, we go through this exercise where we say, okay, what do you want? What are the 4 things we want to achieve over the next 12 months? And then obviously we take a step back and go, okay, actually, to make that possible, what do we want to get done in the next 12 weeks, which is going to empower us to get the 12-month goal? And then again, with the 12 days, with the intention of how do you front load as much as you can in the year? I believe that the year is very cyclical. And I think if you can hit the first 12 weeks running, the rest of the year takes care of itself. If you can get the first 12 days and 12 weeks really with a strong amount of momentum. And it is kind of a sense of, okay, sometimes goals and future states seem very big and hard to achieve. And even when you're achieving them, you probably sometimes don't even realize you're ticking off some of these. Because I love going back and going, oh, well, this was for my 12-month thing here. And I've got it. I did it. I got, 80, and I'm happy to get 80%. Especially if you're making it difficult for yourself. Getting 80% is great. Getting 60% can sometimes be awesome. But I guess it's kind of like working backwards can be really helpful.
So these days I'm working as a consultant and CTO coach, and another reason why I took that path was my wife is working full time. I had been the breadwinner of the family previously. But we wanted to make sure that at any one time there was a parent available for my son. So then I was like, okay, well, what does that mean? It means I'll need more flexible work that I can, plan around commitments for supporting my son. So again, it was a similar sort of thing of like, by working out those sort of longer term goals and asking what would have to be true.
Totally.
Then you start to get these answers like, oh, that my assumption was always look for full-time work because that's what I've always done. But it helped me challenge that assumption. And so, these days I'm coaching CTOs and consulting with, all manner of companies on tech strategy and all sorts of
tech strategy. Is it always with the scope of empowering the CTO, or sometimes it's actually more impact towards the stack or towards the kind of general direction of the company? Is it always
all of the above?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tech strategy is very difficult to have if the company has no strategy, and so sometimes it's about holding up the mirror and say, well, at the moment, as a whole organization, we're not making any choices. So is making it very difficult for the CTO to then make any choices on behalf of the company. So sometimes you sort of got to take it up a level. But yeah, I'm quite used to working with CEOs and CTOs. And sometimes it's like helping them, understand each other better and meet in the middle.
CEOs and CTOs, that kind of relationship between the non-technical and technical.
Yeah. So I might be often meeting with the CTO fortnightly, but maybe the CEO, a couple of times a quarter.
Right. Yeah, just to be that bridge.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you can get feedback in both directions, how they're going. This is how the CTO feels like they're going. And then this is what the CEO is actually observing. And sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different things. So.
Interesting. Like, what does 5 years from now look like then for you? Like, if you were to kind of go, well, I like what I'm doing, love what I'm doing, love the work I'm doing, the impact I'm having, what would take it to the next level and mean that, you'd kind of achieved what you wanted to achieve in, let's say, 5 years?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I feel the coaching business I've established about 12 months ago.
Yeah.
So it's growing, and it's, but it's not yet 50% of all my working time.
Yep.
Yeah, and certainly not 50% of my revenue. The consulting model is quite good because once you've got an agreement with a company, then that might be, big blocks of time. Coaching's different. You're like each client, it might be an hour a fortnight. So you need a lot more clients. So at the moment I'm just focused on, building up that sort of client pool. I've got a good range of coaching clients, so across New Zealand, Australia, and also further abroad. And some of them are startups, some of them are scale-ups, some of them are people working at government-linked private organizations. I've got one working at a defense contractor, so there's a good range there. So yeah, maybe the next 5 years, building up the coaching business, and then just continuing to look at is consulting the right thing that's fitting with it. Yeah.
Right. So maybe even a move away from that eventually, as
it could do. The feedback cycle working as a consultant, can be pretty slow. Yeah.
Right.
And it's not just winning the work, but it's like you can do a lot of analysis and then provide recommendations, but
but they may never be implemented.
That's right. Yeah. Coaching's great. On the other hand, it's like
you're closer to implementation, probably.
You have a conversation, they'll put it into practice within the next fortnight, and then you'll talk about how progress went. So there's both could lead you to similar topics, but the interactions are quite different.
Yeah, that's cool. Where do you feel like you have most impact at the moment then with your clients? Is there like one at the moment that you like think about and like, that's nailing it, I'm nailing it?
There's a few actually. I mean, the typical sort of pattern is like, sometimes they're not even feeling like, should I even be the CTO? Like maybe they were, the longest tenured IT person and sort of grew into the role, or so there's imposter syndrome sort of feeling. So helping people overcome that concern and feel confident in the role and that they're the right person and that they have the requisite skills for succeeding in the role is really rewarding. And so there's been quite a few clients where we've gone through that part, and now it's like, now that they're feeling confident, it's like, okay, we can lift our sights on bigger goals about what they want to achieve, now that they feel like, I am the CTO and I'm the right person for them.
And what percentage of CTOs, because you kind of alluded to it there, would you say fall into the role from being really strong technical minds? And how much of them hate it?
Hate which part?
hate the transition almost from engineer to a CTO, because you're not on the tools perhaps.
Yeah, that's right. So there's definitely, it's not whether they hate it. Some do, but it's more like it's a loss of identity. It's like how they understood that they added value before was through what they could do on the tools.
Yeah.
And I mean, leadership is situational. So sometimes, in startups and scale-ups, maybe at points in time, leaning back into that might be the right thing to do. We recently interviewed a very well-known person, Fred George, who's been working with companies and as a fractional CTO for years. And his starting point is normally just embed as a coder in with the teams and expand from there. So it's like, it's almost the inverse of the advice that you would give most CTOs, which is just, it's probably best to get off the tools and improve how you can influence and provide context for people so that everyone else can make better choices.
Does the CTO change in the world of agents?
I think there could potentially be a lot of changes in the world of AI and agentic AI and things like that. Certainly a lot of, you have this seesawing of like, there's this assumption of teams should look like this shape and this size in order to get things done. But when you have each member of the team augmented by AI, those equations change. And I'm seeing CTOs still just working off the previous assumptions, or at least not even willing to challenge some of that. So I do think there'll be a lot of shifts.
We have a really strong lead dev who really plays it's hard because I'm quite technical. And then we've got a advisor called Carl von Rando, who's a strong, he's probably the best engineer I know, and technical mind. And Will, who's grown into our tech lead role, which I would say is closest to the CEO role we have in our organization. He wants to write great code, and he loves writing great code.
Yeah.
But he's the best person to lead the direction because he writes great code.
Yeah.
So how do you find balancing that in a when someone has a preference towards output rather than direction?
Yeah.
It's like that thing of, it would have been easier if I just did it myself.
So that might be an example of where at least checking yourself about whether that, sometimes the answer may be yes, but that is normally at the expense of someone else learning.
Right.
So, I think that's the important factor of like, we're in a startup, which we know we want to be successful, therefore we want it to grow. In order to grow, the people will need to grow with it. So, from that sense, yes, you could always be the one to go solve that problem, but the people around you are not growing. And therefore, at some point, you'll be needed for something else, or you'll be wishing you could clone yourself or something like that.
Well, maybe you can.
Maybe you could have a digital twin, but more likely is to be able to enable the people around you.
Yeah. And we have many engineers, and I think it's probably more towards when you get the wrong fit for the organization, and that person is perhaps a C player and the lead is an A, and then there's that whole dynamic of how do you bring the C player up, and when do you go, well, we have done all the steps to now what's the next step? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes in the sort of best business questions, there's the answer which is right 80% of the time, and then the exact inverse of it is the answer for the other 20% of the time. So I wrote a post on my Great CTO blog, and I was celebrating the independent developers. Like, this is where one person companies have gone and created something great, or an individual within a company has created something great almost alone. So I'm thinking of John Carmack at ID Software in the early days, and there's a whole range of people, and it goes completely contrary to the advice that you would usually give of like of how to succeed in a company. I shared that just because, not to say that most of the time the advice to say get off the tools would be the right one, but sometimes the inverse is true.
Yeah,
and
right.
so you need to be aware of the context that you're in order to.
That also comes down to the individual sometimes too, right?
Yeah.
Like we had that, say, the inverse thing almost happened, where great engineer that became a lead, then jumps away from the tools.
Yeah.
But actually, perhaps for the organization at the time, we didn't actually need so much infrastructure in that kind of area because we're quite a small team. Maybe it was best to stay on the tools.
Yeah.
So you just got to try and guide people where the best output is for the company, and that puts the company in the best situation for success.
My most recent full-time role was as a chief product and technology officer. And so there's this conventional wisdom around this sort of 3 Ps in a pod, which is normally like the tech person, the product person, and the design person.
Yeah.
Different companies have different mix and things like that. And again, it's like 80% of the time that's the right fit. But there are also people who may be great at delegating, maybe polymathic, maybe, so there's no reason why there can't be people that are great at that intersection between product and tech, like to know what's possible, but what does that need to mean in terms of users and customers as well.
Totally. Yeah, that makes sense.
So when we're seeing a lot more of those roles now, so you see them advertised.
I mean, I think now is the opportunity to create $1 billion company with under 10 people is more than achievable. It's inevitable that's going to happen. That's actually probably already happened. I think, for example, if I think of OpenSea, that crypto NFT project, now I don't know if they're worth $1 billion anymore, but they had a tiny team and they just grew like crazy. And that was, I mean, the application of a lot of those crypto projects and the actual true enterprise value that they delivered to the market is probably nowhere near what, the numbers suggest.
Yeah.
However, what was demonstrated was small dispersed teams were able to have great impact and build very quickly and get distribution very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that gives us at Acuity definitely a lot of confidence around, okay, you don't need 160 people to run a large organization anymore.
Yeah.
And you should not be optimizing for headcount. You should be optimizing for, your operational efficiency.
Yeah.
Especially if we're in a world, I'm writing a memo at the moment and I'm finding it very difficult to release it. And because I'm personally conflicted at the moment where I see asset prices are historically very expensive. And then I'm processing the fact that the cost of a minute or an hour is basically going to zero through basically computation. So then you can't get away from owning productive assets or owning equity, because equity is the only real way to kind of productively gain more cash flow or equity value.
Yeah.
Because the time of an hour is basically very rapidly going to zero. So that means you have to optimize, in my opinion, for 2 things: equity ownership of good productive assets and relationships.
Yeah.
Because I can't charge for an hour and make a good living. At least in 3 years, I probably won't be able to. So it's that's that confluence between equity ownership and.
I think those 2 are very interesting because they're also, within a company context, 2 things strongly related to incentives as well.
Totally.
So,
all of our staff are exposed to our equity upside because of that. Because not just because I want them to be incentivized, but actually because I believe that if I don't enable that, then they may not generate enough equity to have a good life, given where the time of an hour is going. So the incentive side is good, but some people don't care. Some people don't value really the equity.
Yeah.
It's not what motivates them. What motivates them might be the work they're doing. It might be the culture and the environment, the working situation, etc. Right? There's so many things that that motivate people. But yeah, I constantly thinking about that equity question and that time question.
Yeah.
And therefore, actually, relationships become the most valuable thing. How do you scale up a relationship, right? You can't really scale that.
You've got to make time for it, right?
Yeah. So that's something that I kind of think about a lot. And I think from the kind of the seat of a CTO, you're at the forefront of that.
Yeah. And this is a lot of what I coach on. It's like even being aware of the incentives within organizations and the fact that like you say, people have different motivations.
Yep.
Even if it's not a strong motivator, it still sets a good signal that everyone can see about what is important for the company, as opposed to what happens in larger organizations where everyone is worried about what's important for their department.
Yep.
And a lot of that creates a lot of unnecessary friction within organizations actually making progress together.
Totally.
And when you talk about pace, it's the progress together that normally equates for the pace of the actual company.
Yeah. And that kind of talks to remote work versus in person, right? Like being in an office versus remote. And, in 2017, when I built my gaming business, we built a gaming platform, I grew that to over 400,000 users in 18 months. Very successful in Southeast Asia, actually. Of course.
Yeah.
And we built a remote. We were remote. We were on Discord is where we went, and then subsequent the acquiring company, I was tasked with running that business when we got acquired, and we were in person but strong Discord connection, and then in now Acuity and Medition we're remote first. Obviously, we were born out of the pandemic, so that obviously influenced it. But now I'm trying to kind of refocus us more into a more physical environment, because there's something to be said about that context of overhearing and helping someone solve a problem because you overheard, rather than Discord where nothing gets heard. You're in this silo on your own potentially, and that kind of why isn't this working kind of comment goes unheard, and then you go 3 weeks and something's still an issue. Whereas if it was in the office, maybe that would have got addressed straight away. Yeah.
I mean, I remember over the period of the pandemic, and we're working with teams and trying to recreate those opportunities for serendipitous discovery, which is that, overhearing, a water cooler chat or those sorts of things.
Totally.
But, the office is an environment where that happens naturally. We also encourage the teams to be like, actively think about what are you trying to achieve, and in what context is that going to be best. And so for some of them, it was like, well, when it's possible, we'll go in to the office for those meetings. But it's a timing and a coordination issue. I'm understanding of companies saying, well, it's going to be these 3 days, because that in a way helps solve the timing and coordination issue of it reduces the search space for that. Totally. I think over time we'll find more nuanced ways, or we'll also see the workforce get more adept at identifying, okay, this is where we need to be together because we're doing this sort of work. And it'll work itself out. At the moment, it's a big source of friction.
Yeah, totally. And you're now a father, right?
Yep.
So
one son.
What do you think about intergenerational wealth, and what do you think some of the most important steps are to giving your offspring the best shot?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very complicated topic. I mean, there's some basic things that we've tried to do to put my son on a good path.
Yeah.
Most of it is focused on learning and education. Also trying to ensure that we have the means to support that education as it goes along. So that, that sort of guides at least our medium term goals.
Totally.
But also having some assets. So, we own our house, and so we have, we have some shares and some bits and pieces. But I feel like I'm still
Learning.
Yeah, still learning and still mapping the territory on that.
Around intergenerational and in supporting supporting your kids to have the best outcome possible.
You can look at the extremes, right? And you go like, all right, do I want my son to grow up it's
nothing,
like one of the rich kids, or do I, or the other side is like,
how much support do you give? And actually, the right answer is different for every single child, I imagine.
Yeah.
And also for many out there, many in the world, that you don't actually have a choice.
Yeah.
It's just that life happened, and then the circumstances where they were, and you have to just adapt and make the best of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's something that we think about obviously on the pod a lot. It's so important, and like you say, it's that tension between resourcefulness, support, and resilience.
Yeah.
And you want your kid to be resourceful, resilient, and also have a trampoline, as we call it, as Ab calls it. If you're walking a tightrope, then you want to know that there's a trampoline there to in fact, propel you back up when you do inevitably fall, because we all do.
I feel like the last 12 to 24 months have been a good lesson for me. So multiple times throughout my career, I've started businesses. We started one in Malaysia, and that was a profitable business, and we shut it down and used the proceeds to help buy a house and stuff like that. So that was a good experience. But at the time, I had a good cushion, in moving to New Zealand, putting a lot of the investment into the house, and then starting another business around the sort of coaching and consulting. You're without the same safety net. You could liquidate your assets, but it's not the same. Cash flow is a little bit tighter as you're getting started up. So I feel like that's been, there's a safety net of sorts, but it's far enough away. You're like, well, that'll hurt if I fall all the way down. And that's the same sort of tension that you hope that your family could go through at times. Of like, to know that if they topple, it's not going to just wipe them out completely and be devastating for them forever for the future, but also to not have so much cushioning that that the chance to actually learn real lessons is taken away.
Living kind of taking chances, right? Putting yourself in a position where you can get lucky, mixed with no fatal blows. Right, that's the real thing, right? Don't be taken out of the game. We have a company thing, I guess, what a value, live to trade another day. Right, so you don't, the biggest thing is getting taken out of the game. Losing your assets and getting taken out of the game is the two things that are most difficult that you see people go through. I saw us, my family, buy a home in 2008 when they shouldn't have bought a home. And absolutely, it was criminal that what happened in 2008 and how they allowed people to lie about their income, or not be inventive with their income. But it's that kind of, but at the same time, it was, well, if they help, if there was the ability to hold on, maybe there wasn't. I didn't have too much connection to the situation at the time. I was much younger. But like, that plays such a big role in terms of, is it going to be fatal if this doesn't go the way we think it is, and how I guess as well, who you trust to give you that advice. And are the people that are giving you that advice incentivized for you to buy that home? Right? Because they're going to earn money from it. And that happened to be the case in this instance, where it was where the purchase asset was connected to
Yep.
the person that enabled the all the things to
Follow
happen.
the incentives is such good advice in so many contexts.
I actually just did a pitch at Creative HQ's Accelerator, and I said that one of Charlie Munger's great quotes is, "Show me the incentives, and I'll show you the outcomes."
I think you posted on LinkedIn.
Yeah, totally. And that's the thing. So I think that it's always interesting to see the incentives and look to see where the incentives are, because like you say, that can actually help you find out where the puck is going, right?
Over the break, my family and I traveled to Tasmania, and one of the places we visited was Mona. So it's the Museum for Old and New Art, which, if you haven't gone, it's definitely worth a trip. You travel there in a very luxurious ferry to get to the location, and they spent over $100 million on it.
Wow.
So the guy behind that, he became wealthy through a gambling business that he ran. But it was interesting reading about his reflections over that. Is he never quite realized just how exposed he was. And so,
what do you mean by exposed?
As in, if he had have wiped out, he may not have lived to fight another day. And so it was like, he did have a successful strategy, which was looking at the bias, the cognitive biases that people operate on, and look at the variation there. But he was ignorant enough to have made the size of bets on that sort of stuff. So
his business was actually gambling, not providing a platform for gambling.
They're a complicated business in that they were working the spread. So they would have people out basically looking for like arbitrage opportunities and things like that. They still operate today. And they're huge. So he's very, if you're looking for an interesting biography, his is an interesting one. But also the museum that he's built on the proceeds of that is stunning and amazing and very interesting.
I read a story, I don't know which company it was, I think it's Home Depot. The founder went and played roulette on the company's last bit of runway, I guess, and obviously it went well, and now obviously Home Depot, I think it's either they're a 30 or $300 billion company, I don't know, it's a ridiculously large company, but interesting, right, around those stories around living to trade another day and taking risk, and the good outcomes and the bad outcomes. And there's a great book I always recommend, which is Annie Duke's Thinking in Bets.
Yeah, I also recommend it to
CTOs. Totally right, because CTOs deal with those unintended consequences all the time. We built out a event-driven architecture from scratch, a full framework for this business, and we actually ended up moving away from it because of the unintended consequences of that decision. And you deal with you always deal with outcomes that you didn't expect. However, you make decisions based on the information you have in front of you, right?
And just need to be willing to change if you have new information that suggests.
That's probably something that's overlooked often.
I see a lot of leaders, just full stop, who, because they're committed in one direction, new information is seen as an aberration, and so they're constantly sweeping it aside and become almost immune to that.
Really good.
Interestingly, just along this similar theme, I've worked with many founders over my entire career. I've worked for them and with them and advised them. Almost all of them will have a story where it got to a point in time where they had no idea how they were going to pay their employees. So there's one, the Hitwise founders, Adrian Giles and Andrew Barlow, have shared frequently. So, but they went to the nearby park near our offices, and they were like, how are we going to pay for this off the credit card? They're all maxed out, and they were basically both in tears in the park. And then a phone call came through, and it was like, it was a new customer looking to sign up, and it was just enough to,
That's what they needed.
yeah, just to get through. But it's like every founder I've spoken to, almost without a fault, has had that story. So yeah, again, it's that continuum. It's like you want to be safe, but you know they would have found a way, and they did, and then that's some of the fortitude that founders need.
Yeah, I know. I'm not obviously being a founder, and I was talking to my wife about it recently. Obviously, I've run my own businesses since I was, for over a third of my life, my full lived experience. And I was like reflecting on that. It is challenging, and I don't know where I thought I would be, or how I thought life would be now. But I don't think it's how I thought it would be when I first started. And obviously, it's a completely different direction. I was a goldsmith originally, and then moved into gaming and development there. And now, obviously, we're building Acuity and Edition, and that's really awesome. But yeah,
something we both have in common. So part of my career was in gaming as well. So I worked for Beam and Melbourne House, and later Infogrames. So yeah, but it was a very publish and perish industry at the time. So when the internet started growing, I sort of changed my tack and started joining internet companies. So,
yeah, definitely is. It's not the nicest industry, but it has a lot of potential. It has a very captive and high standard of user. The expectations users have very high.
Yeah.
Willing to move, and obviously you get that fast feedback loop in the gaming industry, but it's built on, I guess, I'd say almost predatory activity from the large publishers and developers towards the surrounding industry, because they basically got to grow and benefit from people's passion, and then trodden that passion, essentially. Like I think about grassroots esports in particular, and go, well, those big brands let those kids, in many cases, right, build their empire from their content, and blood, sweat, and tears. We've actually had a guy on the podcast that'll be released shortly, and ultimately the large publishers and people in the industry took advantage of teams that were doing grassroots work, gave them carrots, but then swooped it up when it was no longer convenient.
Good to see nothing's changed in 30 years.
It is what it is, right?
My starting salary back then, I think it was $7.50 an hour. Fortunately, I was still at uni at the time, but it was like it was all based on people's passion. I mean, I've heard similar stories about working for companies like Tesla and others.
Totally. It happens in
and that was some of the most enjoyable years of my life, so I don't regret it.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, on the gaming side, I learned a lot. The first startup I joined, I never got the equity that I worked for, but the experience I gained was paid for that time I gave. And then when I think about grassroots esports and gaming, what it gave me was skills and the ability to communicate and make decisions with incomplete information, which has kind of shaped my life. So I'm definitely not feeling poorly about it, but I can in hindsight go and say, wow, maybe we were, and it's similar with VC, right? So we think about VC, how many founders get ruined by VCs in the pursuit of creating something great. And for the VC, it's okay, because as long as I back 10 founders and I blast them with money and make sure they spend it really inefficiently, then one of them will work, and that'll pay for the rest. But I mean, I guess that's a kind of that's a numbers game, and I guess it's a part of the industry. It's I guess about founders to recognize that now, especially in a world where you need less capital.
I mean, there's some lessons there when we're thinking about companies using AI as well. So a lot of the consumption is of these generic AI services and models, right? So why is that happening? That's happening because those organizations need everyone else to go and prove all the use cases. That means a large majority of them need to fail with those use cases so that a small number can succeed.
Yeah.
It's also very hard to build a credible moat with those generic models. And so, it means you need to think about, all right, it's more about the data I've got access to, and, is there some
Or the
sort of
relationship that I hold with
That's
the customer,
right, yeah.
which was going to become far more important over
Mm-hmm.
time. And yeah, I do think about that, because I think about some of the services that are coming out, especially in the B2B space, that just seem like they're going to have really good relationships
Mm-hmm.
in order to succeed, because the way the architecture and the developer ecosystem in the model scene has been built,
Mm-hmm.
it's of minimal cost to implement anyone's solution
Mm-hmm.
natively through the model, like going directly to the endpoint that's providing that service, and training it for that use case that you're using it for.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be creating a deflationary
Yeah.
kind of effect on the industry, and some difficulties for businesses that can't keep that relationship really strong and keep that buy-in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then bringing it back, it's like, well, okay, as our company, what's our purpose? What are the outcomes we're looking to achieve? Can we work backwards from those?
Yeah.
And then it's like, rather than start with AI as the hammer and then look at how you can bang bang that on all the nails, it's rather like, oh, now I'm seeing a problem which is a good shape for AI. And I think personally a lot of the good opportunities are more in like how do you interface. Yes, there can be some automation, and you might be able to do more with less, as we were saying earlier, but I think some of the more differentiating uses will be more like, well, before we had some software which could make a very black and white answer, but can we wrap something which is far more nuanced around it? And so I think that's some really a good opportunity.
So what advice would you give to someone that's wanting to build their wealth as a CTO? So they're ambitious, they are a good engineer, they are now dealing with the nuances of what does engineering look like in 5 years, I think, as well, which I think that's on the mind of every engineer right now. And I think that engineers are also, from what I take away, are the most skeptical of AI in some cases.
Yeah.
Because they're close to it, they see the hallucinations, they see the limitations, and they're really aware of why those limitations also exist.
Yeah.
So I think some of that enthusiasm is not on par with your general consumer that's got really excited and inspired by ChatGPT. So yeah, ambitious, great engineer, looking to make a difference, looking to build wealth, because that's the career they're on. They want to have a great outcome. What would your advice be?
I mean, for those who want to achieve that through their career path, I feel like over the last sort of 12 to 24 months, there's been a squeeze on the market. So interest rates have gone up, and so companies are already trying to do more or less. There's talent out there on the market which are great on the tools, like technically very deep, but also great at making relationships, communicating, setting a vision. And so if you're the CTO that can only do one, well, companies don't have to choose anymore. They can find people who can do both. So I think for, if you're in that position or you aspire to be a CTO, then building out, your soft skills and putting time towards those, having great control of your own time. A lot of CTOs I meet are just way too busy because they wanted to control the quality of what's happening, and they're doing that the only way they know how, which is to get, to basically micromanage or do it themselves. And if you want to succeed as a CTO, you need to be able to go beyond that. How can you support an environment which actually yields quality, every time, and is finding the shortest path to delivering value? The CTOs that can do that have a massive advantage over the CTOs that have have continued to only rely on their technical skill sets.
Totally. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the pod. I really appreciate it.
Cheers.
It's been awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like I've learned a lot. And yeah,
we've just met and we've chatted for an hour. And I mean, as I said earlier, I feel like I already know you from watching the previous podcast episodes. So and I love the breadth and range of conversations. So,
it's much appreciated. Awesome. Well, thanks so much.